Oh, it's starting. Shit. Okay, okay. All right, let me get my theme music here. Check. All right, here we go. Salute to NBA Nation on this Memorial Day Monday, man. Another edition of the NBA Report. KnicksFanTV simulcast, Bleacher Report. Salute. Salute to everybody watching on Facebook as well, man. Another edition as we recap an action-packed NBA Conference Finals weekend. Joining me today, man, salute to my guys back in the building. You know my guy Dexter Henry of New York Post Sports, NY Got Game, among many other media properties, as well as our guy Coach Eric Newman, man, NBA content creator, NBA filmmaker, basketball producer, as well, basketball content producer, as well as the co-host of B-Ball Radio with Bobito Garcia. Let's get into it, man. Only 4 teams left, and this thing has gotten pretty exciting here as we have come into a 2-1 series lead in both conferences, man. So let's kick it right off, man. Knicks, Cardiac Kids, 20 points down. Everybody thought all was lost. I think one of the funniest comments I saw this morning was somebody was like, man, at halftime, I was working the trade machine, seeing what we could do this offseason. So it was that type of tale of two halves scenario because they were getting bullied in that first half. And, hey, made it a good one. Karl-Anthony Towns, 20 points in the fourth quarter. Sensational. And the Knicks defense led the way as well and got some good bench play, man. Dex, your thoughts on this, man? Oh, wait.
He's so excited.
He's so excited. He's speechless.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm speechless. I was moving and moved my mouth and no sound was coming out.
Yeah.
That game was, wow, a roller coaster. I was saying to Eric before we came on live, doing the live broadcast we started talking about off-season plans. We started talking about what's next for the Knicks. Is Tibbs going to survive this? All this other stuff. Look, terrible second quarter by the Knicks. One of the worst quarters I've seen them play all year. There was so much talk about the starting lineup change. I didn't know if it was necessary for them to do it. I like that they tried something different. The starters were +1 for the game. Now, I found it interesting that the closing lineup, which ended up being the old starting lineup, that was +9 in the fourth quarter. So I found that really interesting. But I think what happened here, the biggest thing in this game, and some of it might have been Tibbs was forced to do it, was that Tibbs played 9 guys. Legitimate 9-man rotation. You got minutes from DeLon Wright, CP. I know you've been asking for some DeLon Wright. You got some DeLon Wright here. I've been asking for 2. I said it last game. Campaign, love you, man. Fellow Steelers fan, ain't getting it done. It was time. It was time. It was time to sit Campaign, and I like that Tibbs did that. Landry Shamet gave big minutes. I know you'll look at it and say he only had 3 points. He had 1 3-pointer, but he was a +12. He was aggressive on defense. Those minutes matter so much and why the Knicks were able to come back, because they were able to steal minutes. Other guys were able to rest. They weren't taxed. You survived Jalen Brunson in foul trouble, despite the refs being the refs were a little on one yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. But I think it's big. And the key to me for the Knicks going forward is Tibbs going to still stick to this, guys? Is he going to stick to this 9-man rotation? Don't just let it be because, McBride picked up 3 fouls quickly. Deuce did. And then Brunson was in foul trouble. Cat was in foul trouble. And that kind of forced you to play DeLon Wright and others. Stick with that. Against this Indiana team, you need to at least go, I would say 8 deep, but 9 is even better, because they're going 10 or 11, and they've got guys in fresh all the time. And then, obviously, man, I criticized Cat. I said he was MIA for 3 quarters. He had 4 points going into the fourth quarter. He was MIA. He was terrible. And that man had the quarter of, if not his career, his Knicks career for sure. And if the Knicks go on to win this series or come back and win this series, people are going to remember that quarter more than they will remember the collapse in game one. And he was tremendous. You got to give guys credit. This is about the playoffs. This is about stepping up when you need it most. And the last couple things I would say is, I think that this team, I think one thing I also saw it, now they've come back from 23 times here in the postseason. They were able to do this in a game where Jalen Brunson was not good. He had 4 turnovers. This was not a good Jalen Brunson game. He did not shoot the ball well. He did hit big shots late, which we're not shocked about. But I think this team's ability to do that, a lot of that had to do with the time where Jalen Brunson missed 15 games this season. And this team learned how to play without him. And I think that was very valuable in a playoff game where other guys had to step up. So the key is, look, I've been asking for Tibbs to do this all season. I've been asking for him to go 10, 11 deep with the Knicks so that guys can be ready for situations like these. This is what I've been asking for. It's not about injuries. It's not about that with the Minutes Police. It's so guys can be ready. And you wonder with Tibbs, it's like, man, if you had experimented with more lineups and played more guys throughout the season, you might even have been able to go to this quicker in this series. But here we are now, and hopefully he does the same going forward.
So, how many times during halftime in the third quarter do you think people put Karl Anthony Towns in the trade machine for a deal with Giannis?
Yes.
over under $1 million.
You got to believe Google Trends was like, spiked. How did the Knicks get Giannis in here?
It was a truly gutsy, inspiring performance, not just by Towns, but by the Knicks. They were all but done. Second quarter wasn't pretty, but you go into halftime down 13, it felt larger than that, right? But then you just start to chip away. And to Dex's point, Shaman and Wright have a lot of game experience. And when Indiana can bring McConnell in, bring Shepard in, bring Matherin in, bring Tony Bradley in, I'm probably forgetting somebody else who played important minutes for them along with the starters. The Knicks have to do some of the same, or else you're just going to get worn down. And to be able to win a game on the road, coming from behind for the third time on the road, down 20 in the playoffs, and to do it with Brunson in foul trouble, going 6 for 18. Bridges played a good game overall, but was also 6 for 18. Mm-hmm. And credit Josh Hart. He's literally whatever the Knicks need him to be. And last night it was coming off the bench, double-digit rebounds, doing the dirty work. And then Cat found that groove, man. And OG made some big buckets. But Cat's fire and scoring became contagious. And we talk about the Pacers' high pace of play a lot, right? Well, what's going to slow down the Pacers? It's not just point of attack defense. It's not just getting back in transition. It's scoring so you can get back and reset your defense so you don't have to deal with this team in transition who's throwing 9, 10, 11 guys at you coming right at you. So hats off to the Knicks. And the chess match of this series continues in Game 4 Tuesday night. I can't wait.
Yeah, big time. Although I won't like to see them go down double digits 20 again because of how much it takes out of you to get back and win. You could see it took a lot out of them, even though it was a great win. But I starting that game, I really loved the Pacers' attack. They were attacking the Knicks switches with a lot of aggression, whether it was whoever drew Brunson on the switch or whoever drew Miles Turner on the switch. The Pacers were just trying to punish them inside and attacking the basket, and I thought that was a great emphasis there by Carlisle. They found their open shooters. I mean, their offense was just clicking on all cylinders. As you mentioned, Eric, their transition game, the best transition offense in the playoffs right now. They beat the Knicks 16-2. Last night. So it just puts more pressure on you, number one, offensively, to get quality looks. Those long threes where maybe it's Towns taking them or it's Brunson taking them and they're the last line of defense. A lot of times that's Siakam or somebody else getting out in transition. Those things can kill you. But as you guys mentioned, he had no choice last night based on the foul trouble to go to the bench. But I also thought that even in the first quarter, man, like Brunson looked tired. They interviewed Brunson at the end of the first quarter. It looked like he played 4 quarters. How gassed he was out there.
Yeah.
He played Mitch damn near the entire first quarter in Tibbs, and Mitch was gassed. Like, you know, and you were mentioning these guys like Tony Bradley, Obi, so on and so forth. Those guys play very well within their team concept, no doubt about it. They wouldn't be here without that. But these are not all NBA players. And so with that, Tibbs can afford to play guys like Shamet, Wright, even Precious Achua, because you're going to need to rotate in fresh legs to give you a little bit of a boost. And in the realm of Shamet and Wright, those guys can actually play defense. Like, Delon Wright is a 6'5" guard, known for his deflections and his steal capability, gets you a quality steal in that game, not a loose ball steal, one where he actually snatches it from going to Halliburton, who was going to shoot the three, right? Those type of things you need in a series like this. And so you might look at the stat sheet and say, oh, man, ain't nothing crazy. But when you watch the game, they were so impactful. After the game, Rick Carlisle, they asked Rick Carlisle, what was the difference in the first and second half with your offense? He said, well, they played better defenders. Halliburton, all four guys, great defenders that they brought off the bench. That was the difference in this one, man. And they're going to have to lean on it again in game 4 so that you don't wear these guys out.
Yeah, they can't get away from it. They can't get away from it. I think that I didn't even see that quote from Carlisle, CP, but that's a good one because the Knicks' level of intensity just got up. And you saw it, especially when Shamet came in with Delon Wright. Look, even the lineup they started the fourth quarter with, I was looking at that and was like, yo, where are they going to get buckets here? There was a time they had Mitch, Deuce, Shamet, Wright, and I think it might have been OG on the floor. And I was like, this is not a great offensive lineup.
Yes.
But they were getting
and
stops.
even on the telecast, they're like, man, where are they going to get offense from with this?
Yeah, but they were getting stops, and that's when McBride had that personal 7-0 run. That was huge for them there. I thought Deuce played a fantastic game. And that's the key. I think we're all on the same page with this. It's just I don't want to. Maybe it's not even stealing minutes. Can you have productive minutes where you win possessions, where it's not about guys scoring a lot of points. It's just, can you stop them, get enough offense that allowed a guy like Cat to get hot, and then Brunson came in. He was a closer and took him home. Tibbs can't get away from this. In a way, it's like the foul trouble, combined with the lineup change and what has happened in the first 3 games of the series, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does in game 4, man, because you don't want to see him go back to a stubborn way and say, I'm going to rock with my 7 guys. No, not against this team. You got to respect this Pacers team. They go deep. I love how Carlisle plays 10, 11 deep. Hey, Thomas Bryant isn't working? All right, we're going to bring in Tony Bradley. Bradley's going to come in and give us some minutes to hold it down, just till we can get, Miles Turner back out there. That's the way the Knicks have to approach it, because I still think the Knicks have more talent than the Pacers.
Yeah.
But what good is your talent if they're burnt out? I think that's the way the Knicks have to approach this. Tibbs has to approach it. And look, coaches can learn too. Coaches can get better from game to game and within series. They have development too. So hopefully Tibbs can learn from this.
McBride's minutes were huge. His 9 points felt like it had the impact of 16 or 17, which may not sound like it makes sense, but just very impactful. And you talk about that 16-2 transition number. Part of me thinks 14 of those 16 for the Pacers were in the first half. I mean, the Knicks just slowed the game down to a grind. And to Dex's point, just keep it close. When you're surviving, it's one thing to blow leads, right? So the Knicks blew a huge lead in game 1 and lost the game. But when you are on the road and your back is up against the wall and you've got Brunson, who's a tremendous closer, and now, say what you want about Cat's struggles and other moments, played the biggest fourth quarter of his career. You have those 2 guys, along with OG, Hart, and Bridges. You keep the game close. You slow down Indiana so it's uncomfortable for them, and we see what happens. You got a chance to steal a game on the road and get back into this series. Now, game 4, as we spin this forward, one thing that's a major concern for the Knicks, and I'm sure they're talking about it. Siakam, Turner, and Halliburton all had medium games, right? You look at the box score. You review the impact. They were all very quiet in the second half. Siakam obviously had a monster game too.
Yeah.
How do you keep those guys in check again? And really, the only pacer that made a huge impact on the game was McConnell, and most of that was in the first half when he was helping open up that lead. So if you're the Knicks, how do you keep those guys in check? Because the way I view the Pacers is, most nights Halliburton's going to have a really good night, right? Siakam is a barometer, and then how they shoot the three. They were 5 of 25.
5 of 25.
So
yeah.
that was a huge, huge piece to slowing them down. And then, of course, the Knicks just no longer settling. And I feel like, we've talked about Cat a lot. I feel like I'm pretty level-headed with my analysis of him, and he stepped it up. I mean, that left-hand drive and finish, the threes, obviously. We saw the threes in the Detroit series. It's incredible what the Detroit series did them for the Boston series and what the Boston series has done for this series. And incredible by Cat. And he's got to do it again. He's got to be tied for the best player on the floor in order for the Knicks to get this thing back to MSG for Game 5.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Totally. In terms of the series being tied.
Sure. Totally agree with you there. From the Siakam standpoint, OG's got to get his revenge again. Siakam cooked him up in Game 2. So OG, who had a big block on Aaron Nesmith at the end of Game 3 in the fourth quarter, he's got to take that Siakam assignment on again because he can get it cracking when he needs to. And as you mentioned with those McBride minutes, I talked about, to me, the turning point of the game was that 7 minute to minute and a half left in that fourth quarter where Brunson picks up his fifth foul in the 7-minute mark. McBride comes back in, and they had a 1-point lead at that point. And between the Cat going off, but defensively, McBride leading that unit to keep it to a 1-point game. Brunson comes back in with a minute and a half. It's a 1-point Knick lead still, and Brunson gets his 4 points to help close the deal. That 6 minutes right there with McBride was vital for the Knicks because, yes, you can make an argument that maybe Tibbs was saving Brunson because he had the 5 fouls. You don't know if this game potentially goes into overtime, so you want to bring him in later. But I think you needed McBride's defense at the point of attack even more so because of Brunson's vulnerability there, that they were able to ride that momentum all the way to a minute and a half and then bring Brunson back in to close it out. And he hit a big floater, cold, coming off the bench. That was a big 6 minutes right there between those two guys, man. Deuce was vital in this game. Big performance.
It was a big 6 minutes, CP. You know what's funny, CP? If I'm being honest, in the game, I was like, man, why is he not bringing Brunson back in? I thought he'd bring him back in around the 4-minute, 3-minute mark. And I've kind of rethought how I feel about that now and maybe going forward if there's another situation like this for the Knicks, whether Brunson's in foul trouble or not, maybe sometimes it might be best if it's a tight game in the middle of a fourth quarter, maybe you leave McBride out there for defensive purposes, put some trust in him, and then let Brunson come in and be fresh and be a fresh closer in the last 2 minutes. We know how good of a closer he is. How much did it help him last night that he was fresh, right?
Yeah.
He was fresher than everybody else when he came in. And it's those kind of things. Is it going to work every game? No, but you can kind of have the feel for the game. You know what I'm saying? And look, Tibbs was forced to do that yesterday. And you got to give him credit for that, though. He rolled with McBride longer than I initially thought he would. Or I think most fans and other people in the media, I saw them tweeting. They were like, yo, why is he not bringing him in? Why is it taking so long? Hey, he pushed the right button on that. You got to call it what it is. And those minutes were huge. You were 100% right. I also think OG deserves some love in this game. He hit 4 threes. He had some big-time shots. I know he only had, 16 points?
16.
But he had a really efficient game and had some big shots and huge defense, obviously, the block on Nesmith. You got to watch his ankle going forward with Nesmith to see how it is with the day between. But I thought OG was as steady as a Knick as they were, him and McBride, in this game, and they were huge parts of why the Knicks won this game.
Hey, and it's not the same, but it's not crazy dissimilar. Like when Isaiah Thomas became the king of the fourth for the Celtics, you also had to hide Isaiah Thomas on defense, right? So there'd be situations where All right, let's put IT on the bench. Let's have Avery Bradley and Marcus Smart dog these guys for a few minutes. Let's get IT's fuel tank revved up for the last three so he can come back in. Now, obviously, you didn't want Brunson to pick up that sixth foul. And to your point, CP, it was working. It wasn't like they fell behind. They kept the lead. And you want to talk about the guts to stick with your instinct there. That's a tough call to make, to keep your guy out that long, and then he comes back in and he gets that bucket after Cat did what he did. Impressive from the team, impressive from the staff, and obviously that starts with Tibbs.
Yeah, no question about it, man. So to everybody in the chat once again, hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. CP the Franchise, Dexter Henry, Eric Newman in the building. So to everybody watching on the NBA Report, Knicks Fan TV, Facebook, and Bleacher Report, Twitter, X as well. And, you know, just to close off with this, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night, Tibbs finding the right balance of combinations, rotation pieces to get the optimal defense and offense is clearly going to be key here. And, hey, maybe it is staggering Brunson and Towns a little bit more so that you're not so vulnerable with your two weakest links out there on the court at all times. So, hey, it worked out in Game 3. Let's see what happens there in Game 4. And Game 2, they had Towns all the way parked on the bench because he was so brutal defensively. It's tricky, man. But, you know, to see all these games really come down to the wire, every single one of them, the Knicks will be right there, man. Just keep it close. As you said, Eric, keep it close, man.
Siakam's he's the biggest concern because positionally when you start Mitch and you start Cat together, Cat's matching up with him. Mitch, of course, is matching up with Miles Turner. When you start and you go small and Mitch goes to the bench, you start Hart, you know, Cat obviously goes over to Turner, and then it's Hart or OG on Siakam. Obviously, OG is the one who's the best prepared. He's got the best size, best strength, best footwork, best skill set to guard Siakam. But we all know how this works. So many screen and rolls, so much switching, so much playing 4-on-3 out of the trap or the hedge, or when they run at closeouts. And that's what Indiana did so well in games 1 and 2 is they just kept running their stuff and getting 4-on-3 situations for open shots. So again, you've got to figure out how to slow them down. And, you know, of course, in Game 4, you're not going to be able to afford having Cat and Brunson in any kind of foul trouble. You're not going to get that lucky again. And Cat's got to get going early. Because if Cat's stuck on 4 points as you're entering the second half in Game 4, something's going to be terribly wrong. So,
yeah,
Knicks got to ride that fourth quarter wave right into Game 4, take over that building early, and you know you guys are 48 minutes away from tying this series, getting home court back, and you can only imagine what Madison Square Garden would feel like for Game 5. I was joking, looking at the ticket prices the other day, and right now, 2 days ago on one of the resale sites, courtside was $20,000 for Game 5, and that was before the Knicks cut it to 2-1 in the series.
Yeah.
So hopefully your blood pressures are all somewhat level for Game 4. Can't imagine what they were for Game 3. But the one nice thing about having your team out of it on Memorial Day is, as you could tell, I'm very, very calm and relaxed. Even though it's absolutely destroying me on the inside that my guys are not playing into late May.
Yes.
But I salute you guys for making this a series. And, I mean, you couldn't script this. They come back twice in Boston, down big to win those games, and then they lose 2 games at home to start the next series. It's bizarre. So much of this playoffs makes no sense compared to the recent history of the NBA playoffs. but that's why it's so damn entertaining and fun to watch.
Yeah, no question about it. Once again, this is the NBA Report KFTV simulcast. Salute to everybody in the chat. Once again, hit that thumbs up on Free Boys. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. I want to shout out one of today's sponsors, man. Shout out to our guys at Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, man. Over $25 billion recovered, over 500,000 clients served. Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people for over 35 years. So if you've been injured, you deserve to be paid. All law firms are not the same, and the one thing about Morgan & Morgan is that their fee is free unless they win. So make sure you go to forthepeople.com/KFTV. That's forthepeople.com/KFTV to contact one of the many injury lawyers ready to fight for you. Or you can dial pound 529 or pound law from your cell phone. That's pound law or pound 529 from your cell phone. Okay. All right, fellas. We got another game tonight. 2-1 series in Minnesota. We got the OKC Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Timberwolves getting a lot of confidence out of their Game 3 victory, man, as they washed their Timberwolves. You had Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle having monster games. Timberwolves' defense bludgeoning OKC. But OKC is still the favorite tonight, man. Dex, what are you thinking about in terms of the series and this game tonight?
I was stunned how bad OKC looked in that game, but I thought it was one of those games where they knew they didn't have it. They just let go of the rope. And they're like, all right, we'll be back for game 4. Listen, I think OKC bounces back in a major way, but you gave Minnesota life. Their role players played really good. You always expect that with some of the role players in home games. Can they do that again? That's going to be the key for Minnesota. And can they defend at a high level? Because I expect OKC to respond. However, I think Minnesota's going to be a little confident here, feeling that they're back in the series. I think this is going to be a very close game. I'm going to give Minnesota the edge here in this game. I think they're going to figure out a way to get this one. It's not going to be easy, but I think they're going to figure out a way to get this one. This goes back 2-2 to OKC, but I expect the Thunder to play much, much, much better tonight. I'd be stunned if they got blown out again. But I think Minnesota knows they have to play. It's funny, they and the Knicks are in the same situation in my eyes. Look, going into game 4, they got to play with the desperation they did in game 3. Mm-hmm. You have to close it out. You have to look at this like an elimination game. You have to do it. And so I'm going to give Minnesota. I know I picked OKC in 6. I'm still sticking to that, but I think Minnesota wins tonight and they even it up at 2.
Yeah, Eric, the thing with the Thunder, man, is like I just have a hard time really putting just being very fearful of this team. They're a very good team, historic differential and all of that. But like, do you remember? Did the Celtics ever have one of those games in the playoffs last year where they just got washed like that by almost like 30 some odd points?
Game 4 in Dallas, up 3-0 in the finals.
Oh,
yes,
yeah, that's one.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it.
That's the one.
That was it.
I was shocked. I mean, and they got beat up pretty good in one of the Denver games. Correct me if I'm wrong as well, right?
Yeah.
I was shocked. I sat down for that game on Saturday night, and I thought I was about to watch a terrific NBA playoff game, and that thing got out of hand real quick. Not indicative of a 68-win team, not indicative of a team that hangs their hat on defense and teamwork, and surely not indicative of a team that thinks it's ready to win an NBA championship. So, listen, the Minnesota Timberwolves are a very good team. They are good enough to be where they're at. They're good enough to represent the West in the NBA championship. But the Thunder are one of 6 teams of all time to win 68 games in a season. We know the record point differential. They play 9 to 10 guys. They get after it defensively. They have the MVP. They have a very well-constructed supporting cast around him. You should not be getting your doors blown off like this, even though Minnesota has that confidence and has a terrific spirit at home. So I'm aligned with Dex. I think tonight's going to be a great game. I coin flip in terms of the results, right? But I picked OKC in 7. I'm sticking with that. I did expect Minnesota actually to get one of the games in Oklahoma City just because of the role that they were on. but Ant's that guy. So Shea's the MVP. So let's see what Shea's got tonight. This is a huge game for Shea. Is this the biggest game of his postseason career up until this point? Well, we'd have to look back at the situations last year, but last year they weren't in the conference finals. They're 2 wins from the NBA finals. They just got dismantled on the road. When you're a champion, you send a message on the road, whether that's a closeout game or whether that's setting up going back home for game five up 3-1. So that's the challenge tonight for the Thunder. Can we take that step together to be that team that walks into this environment where literally nobody in that building, maybe other than 37 people, are going to be rooting for the Thunder? And can they bring that thing back home ready to close out? If not, we're in a best of three series that whichever superstar raises their team's level, Ant or Shea, that's the team that's going to come out on top. So
Yeah.
my flight's delayed later, so hopefully I'll catch a good part of the beginning in the car, and then hopefully crunch time once I'm up in the air back to the West Coast. So I'm looking forward to it. But this is a superstar moment right here.
Big time.
The league loves both of them, but we both know what the league wants with Ant Edwards, and Shea just won the MVP.
Yeah.
So this is huge.
Well,
this is huge.
True indeed. And, the Wolves are certainly going to need another spectacular Ant-Man performance tonight, which he's certainly capable of doing. But what I saw, even though I have the Thunder winning this series, I didn't think they were just going to necessarily run away with it. Again, they still can, but I didn't see that because when the Wolves can play at their best, they're a phenomenal team, and I would say they're legitimately a championship caliber team because they shot 56% from the field, 50 from three in Game 3. Their bench, which has the depth from Naz Reid to DiVincenzo to Shai Gilgeous' cousin, Alexander Walker, his defense, and sometimes three-point shooting. Like, they have a lot of capability. Then they throw in the wild card, Terrence Shannon Jr., who just darts out like a bat out of hell, and he's just giving them instant energy and athleticism. So, when you factor all those things in and their three-point potential, look, they can be on point. And one of the things that they pointed to, especially in Game 3, was that they made their defensive adjustments. And I was surprised to see that Chris Finch had them playing some zone in the first two games to try to mimic what Denver did to give them a little bit of fits. And while they had some trouble with that scheme in the first two games, they simplified it in Game 3. They moved Gobert up to the level a little bit more because against SGA, with the mid-range assassin, you're going to get crushed. And they also tweaked how they would attack SGA and Jalen Williams in terms of them not drawing that contact as they do so well. So that's a good defensive adjustment by Chris Finch, man. I really like that, and we'll see what happens tonight, Dex.
Yeah, I love that defensive adjustment. I'm glad you got it because it got Gobert more involved, more active defensively than we had seen from him in the first couple of games. Eric said that this is a big game for SGA and the OKC team, and I agree with him. SGA is the guy I'm not worried about here, though, Eric. For me, it's Jalen Williams. SGA can get it going, but who's going to be that secondary scorer? Now, Jalen Williams has answered the call a couple of times in this playoffs already for me. Game 7 against Denver, he did, and I was very impressed with that. But it's another big game, and we got to remember, CP, you brought up all the numbers with OKC, and you're so right. This is still a very young team that hasn't been to this round. Minnesota has been to this round, albeit a couple of changes. They have been to this round last year. And so this is a moment for OKC. Are you that championship level team? I agree with Eric on that. When you're that team knocking on the door, this goes for the Knicks too, even down 2-1. Can you go win that game on the road? Can you go and get a statement, especially this one after you took a haymaker to the face? Can you bounce back here? And it's the secondary and tertiary players. So it's Jalen Williams, J-Dub, it's Chet Holmgren. How do those guys look, right? How are they in this big game and setting the tone? And I think we'll know that very early on because SGA is going to get his, and I think he's going to cook. And we know he can get to the line and all that good stuff. They now have to also adjust to the defensive scheme that you just talked about, CP, and them going zone, bringing the big man up a little bit higher in the middle of that zone and adjusting that. Does that change the shot quality and diet for SGA? Is he then looking to maybe get others involved? Is he going to trust J-Dub and Chet to make shots? Those are the things I'm really looking at tonight, because I know SGA is going to bring the energy and I think bring his game. And so those guys going to come along with him. That's going to be the key for me.
Yeah, last point for me. I mean, Dex, you hit it on the head, right? Julius Randle's riding right there with Ant. So is J Dub going to match that? Is Chet going to match that? Is Hartenstein going to give you 14 and 12? Which guards are going to step up and make shots when Gobert steps up to shut off the drive? You've got a guard on SGA's hip. Who's going to make those shots when the ball gets sprayed around? I see SGA having the opportunity for a lot of hockey assists, right? So you're going to get that ball out. You're going to force the defense in rotation. That ball's got to beat the defensive rotation, find the open hand. And whether it's an Alex Caruso or an Isaiah Joe or Higgins or Cason Wallace, like whoever it is, big time moment for the Thunder. Like 68 wins, as I keep saying, is great. But we've seen teams have big regular seasons before and not be able to figure out how to get over the hump. This is one of those momentous opportunities for the Thunder to show they're championship ready.
Yeah, big time, man. So we'll see what happens tonight. Everybody in the chat, throw your predictions in the chat for tonight. I see Niall Peterson on the Facebook says, I got OKC tonight. All right, well, we'll see. Tip off at 8:30. Let's see what happens, man. But, fellas, once again, great show, great session on this Memorial Day Monday. Hey, man, holiday weekend. You guys are spending time with us. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Salute to the replay gang, wherever you guys are watching from. And remember that the show's available in audio podcast format, man, so no reason to miss it. We are everywhere you need us to be, and we appreciate the support, man. So everybody enjoy the rest of their holiday Monday, and we'll catch up with you guys this week, man. Peace.
Peace. Good luck tomorrow, fellas.